Jean-Luc Delpeuch, you were for several years mayor of the city of Cluny, a small city with 5,000 inhabitants, and you are now president of the community of communes of Clunysois, 15,000 inhabitants, urban and rural. You are known as a politician who is well established regionally, and I would like first to ask you if the religious question has a place in your experience in the field and perhaps also in the current pandemic situation.
Well, I would say that, as you know, in France, with the principle of secularity, there are not so many, let's say, links between the public sphere and the religious one, so that the involvement of local elected people in religious things is quite weak, I would say. But of course we have some responsibilities in the area, the first of which is maintaining, let's say, places of worship, that is the churches, and we have in our villages a very important number of small Romanesque churches, and this is a point of involvement not only of elected people but also of the population through associations that look after these very nice and very beautiful churches. Even if all these people who have this activity are not really necessarily religious or Christian at all, but this is something that plays a role in the activities of the villages and the link with the elected people. We do not really have a role as our urban colleagues have in big towns of questions of relation between groups of population that would have different religions and that would have some sorts of conflicts between them. We do not have this at all. The reason is that mostly here people are either Christian or without religion. We do not have many people having other religions, maybe some Muslims, but not many. So that this question is not really important for us. Well, we of course participate or are invited from time to time by the parish when they have, let's say, important events, but this is not really an important part of our activity.
And yes, Cluny is known as because of the Abbey of Cluny, which was in the Middle Age a major European religious and economic center. In your experience, is there a legacy of this today?
Yes, there is really a legacy in different aspects. First of all, it's interesting to note that one of the reasons of the foundation of Cluny, which has been created in the 10th century, was that at that time people thought that maybe the end of the world will occur in the year 1000. They thought that maybe the apocalypse will take place in several years. It was a time of epidemics, of wars, of disease, etc. And the abbey was created in order to look after the future, the life after life. And this question of salvation was something quite important at that time, so that the idea of, let's say, the future was really an important question. So that, of course, it could be seen as a religious question, that was a religious question, and Saint Peter was the protector of the abbey. Saint Peter who gives, let's say, who opens the door to paradise, so that the life after my life, after our life, was opened by Saint Peter, and that was the role of the abbey. And even if this question is not let's say, raised in the same, with the same words in the present time, but we all wonder whether there will be a life after our lives. That means not in the sense of paradise, but will the future generation be able to live on this earth or not? And this is a question that, of course, is important to everybody. So somewhere there is maybe a link between this fear of the future and the necessity of changing life, new ways of life. We would say today this was a new way of organizing the community and etc. in the Middle Ages, but there is a link. And it's true that in the present time we work with the elected people of this territory on our project for the next years, and we quite often make reference to this past of the abbey and the reorganization of life with more, let's say, common activities, less individual behavior in terms of transportation, in terms of food, in terms of let's say isolation in the let's say flats, etc., etc. So it is necessary to change the way we live in order to secure a future for the next generation. This is not religious, but this has a link with what our predecessors thought in the Middle Ages. I would not say necessarily religious networks, but I will come back to that. But networks, yes, and the Cluny Abbey was a fantastic network in the Middle Ages with something like 2,000 daughter abbeys all over Europe, from Scotland to Portugal, from Palestine to Germany, etc. So, and it's very interesting to notice that today we still have an association that is called the European Federation of Cluniac Sites, which has something like 200 members throughout Europe. And this association, let's say, maintains links between these former Cluniac sites with cultural activities, with, let's say, historical conferences, etc., with meetings of people. So this idea of belonging to a network linked with a community is something that is quite strong, and a lot of Cluny of people participate in these things. So this is the first point. Second point, we have in Thésée. Thésée is a small village 10 kilometers north from Cluny, an ecumenic community, which is really a network also, with people coming from not only Europe but the rest of the world, with the idea of meeting, of let's say, yes, exchange between different religions, or at least between Protestant, Catholics and Orthodox, and also with other religions. And this makes really a network, and these people also like to think to how to organize modern life so that it will have a future in terms of climatic change or things like this. Yes, we have, I had opportunities, and I still have opportunities to work with scholars, and yes, also scholars in religious, let's say, sciences, because some of them come to Thésée, and Thésée quite often asks me to come and to discuss with them, to explain to them what we are trying to do in terms of public policies and how we organize ourselves, etc. And it is really interesting to participate in these exchanges. Of course, I'm not speaking of religion as such, but more of local organization and relation between people, etc. And I personally, I'm convinced that the local communities would have a lot of advantages to work more with scholars in religious questions, of course, but also sociologists, economists, etc. Because I think that we have to change a lot of things in the present time, and that we need people, also people studying philosophy, to try to make more sense in our activities and to have possibilities of, let's say, putting in question our, let's say, policies, our activities, our projects. So yes, I think that in Cluny we are quite sensitive to this question of working with scientists, scholars, and the European dimension is quite familiar to us.
Thank you very much, Jean-Luc Delpeuch.
You're welcome.